Hi, everybody. Welcome to Lurking for Legends, a live video cast where we talk to people from all walks of the publishing world. My co-hosts, Victorian suspense author Christy Stratos and science fiction author David Kelly, as well as myself, encourage viewers to chime in with questions for our guest or comment on what you hear on the show. And tonight we have on Lurking for Legends, creative nonfiction writer Caroline Topperman. Welcome, Caroline.
Hi, it's great to be here. Thank you for having me.
So why don't we start like we always do every week and have you, Caroline, tell us everybody a little bit about yourself and what it is that you do as a creative nonfiction writer.
That is a long story. How much time do you have?
We have about 40 minutes, so cram it in there.
I'll just talk. You guys sit back, grab a coffee.
All right.
So that's nice. I actually started out in film. I have a degree in screenwriting, and I sort of dropped writing for a long time because I also danced and I performed in and around Ontario for quite a while. And then I moved to Vancouver and then I moved to Poland. And when I was there, I just missed writing. I missed it a lot. I missed all of that. And so I started a blog and I started writing about fitness and the beauty and fashion industry, every industry that I've been a part of. I used to own a Pilates studio. And from there, I started writing articles for different online magazines. And then from there, I just sort of started expanding into bigger essays and all of that. And it was always just in the whole creative nonfiction field or even nonfiction. But now I'm really into memoir and writing sort of more personal family stories and histories and that. So that's that in a nutshell.
Wow, you sound very busy.
So you mentioned you did dance. What kind of dance was that?
So I trained in ballet for my whole life, but then I performed modern dance. So I was a contemporary dancer, and I performed with some different companies with Omo Dance, which is no longer, but they were pretty big in Ontario for many years. We don't need to age me, and so it was a while ago. And then in Vancouver, I danced with Kokoro a little bit, and I did other performances around Vancouver as well. And then when I moved to Poland, I wound up taking ballet classes there, and actually teaching Pilates at their national ballet school. And I performed there, and I sort of made that my last performance when I was there. And I thought, okay, you know what, I can do this. I have one more in me. And so now it's just recreational. But
oh, you're busy. So one question I have, because I'm a fantasy writer, so I write stuff that is certainly fiction. What exactly is a creative nonfiction writer write? Like what exactly I know you're writing, you touched on it when you were telling us about you, but what exactly do you write?
So, I mean, you know what? It's really funny. My editor, she's hilarious because we were laughing about the word nonfiction, and she's like, it is such a broad subject that we can't even agree on how to spell it. Do you spell it with a hyphen or not? Right? And there's just so much to it. So like hardcore nonfiction is straight up like I'm writing a medical textbook or some sort of business textbook. That's just going to be a nonfiction. And then creative nonfiction is anything where you're introducing a different voice, and you'll have something like a memoir, for example, that'll be creative. So that's a creative nonfiction. And that's where maybe some of those edges start to blur a little bit here and there, but you're still, it's primarily real. It's just you're taking a more creative license to how you're writing it.
Sorry, I'm messing up my muting here. So one of your books is called Fitwise,
yeah,
I believe, yes. And you make it sound very achievable, which a lot of people don't believe it is, sort of thing. So could you maybe tell us a little bit about that and your approach to it that makes it not so insurmountable, perhaps?
So that comes from my years and years of being a trainer. And the way I started getting into the fitness industry is that through dance. So that's where I first started it. And then I had actually a really bad injury, and I tore my hamstring. And I wound up finding Pilates that way. And I used to train a lot in a studio in Toronto. And what happened is then I moved to Vancouver, but I kept doing it. I kept up with that. And sort of by accident, or not by accident, I was looking for a job. My husband, or he was fiance at the time, but he had a job. He was gone like 24 hours a day. So I walked into a gym and I said that I asked them for a job, and I had my trainer certificate, and they asked me what I wanted to do. And I said, well, I'd like to be a trainer, but at this point I'll wash your floors. And they hired me on the spot. So I wound up doing front desk and running that. And then I wound up building their Pilates program, and I wound up opening up my own studio. And I wound up actually training some NHL players, some A-list celebrities. So I had a pretty long, pretty successful run with that. Here's my claim to fame, and I figure I can say it. You know, if she finds me, she can sue me. I don't know. But Penelope Cruz once told me that I was the first person who taught her how to do sit-ups properly. So, yeah.
That's awesome.
And so part of my blog, Style on the Side, I started, I have a whole fitness section on there, Fit on the Side. And I just do easy exercises. I have some exercises up on YouTube. I don't really maintain that right now, but they're there. I have ab challenges and things like that. And my whole thing with that was that you really don't have to do a lot, but you have to enjoy what you're doing. So if you hate it, well, you're not going to do it, right? And so what I did is, that was sort of in the heyday of blogging, where everybody was encouraged to take blog posts and make them into a book. So that's what I did. You know, I have the backup where I have all the certifications. I've done all that. I was actually the first fully certified STOT instructor, STOT Pilates, it's a style, in Vancouver proper. And so I had the background for it. And so then I thought, why don't I put it all together and make it into a book where people can follow? So the book it's anything from something so simple as picking out the right workout clothing and figuring out what kind of running shoes you need to work out. Because I don't know about you, but if you've ever walked into like a running store or just a store with sneakers, there's about 1 billion of them and none of them really make sense. So that, and always a great salesperson who's going to sell them to you. So it's just that it's really a common sense approach to fitness and just making it something that you like. And so in there, I've included like these 15, 20-minute workouts that you can do at home. And you can even spread them out during the day. And it's just to get people moving and not sitting on the couch. So that's how that book came about. It was really from the blog. It was just creating that product, but it works on its own. You don't need to, you can just have that and follow it. And the idea was too that you could like tear out workouts and put them up on your fridge. So when you're in the kitchen or when you're doing something, or even when you're brushing your teeth, you can incorporate little things like that just to build on that.
I think as authors, that's be a great book to have, because trying to squeeze in 20 minutes here and 20 minutes, because all we do is sit at our desk all day. And my biggest exercise some days I find is like getting up and going to the fridge to find something else to eat to bring back to my desk.
I know,
which is kind of counterproductive. So yeah,
I have some exercises there that I've like geared towards if you're sitting all day. These are some great stretches to do, and it's easy. From that I actually got a position. I got a contract, I guess, with HuffPost Canada, and I was writing their True North fitness guide, as we called it. And a lot of that was best stretches and exercises to do if you sit all day. And I have like wrist exercises, because I don't know about you, but when I'm typing all day, my hands start to get sore. So it's just about that and getting the blood flow. So I thought it was a good way to like marry two of the things that I do.
Oh yeah, for sure. That'd be great, because that's I find my lower back now that I've sit all day is also bothers me more than it used to. And I think Dave can concur that the most exercise we get, other than going to the fridge, is making coffee. So that's a bit of an arm workout, lifting the kettle.
Coffee is important. Okay, I'm going to give you guys a tip then. The ex-fitness instructor, sit on a wedge.
That sounds painful.
No, they're soft. It's like a foam wedge. It's like a foam wedge, but what it does is it just moves your pelvis forward and it releases pressure off your lower back.
Don't sit on it like this though.
No.
You're talking to wedge like this. Okay. All right.
Yeah,
I was
you're
just
funny.
ahead. Yeah.
Like this.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So I met you last year, I guess. I joined the KW Writers Alliance, and I've recently found out that you are actually the co-founder of the KW's Writer Alliance. And last week, or actually, was it this week? No, it was last week. We had a meeting, and we had a couple new writers come in. And Howard Powell, who is the guy who runs one of the authors who typically runs the meetings, he brought in a prompt from your book because a couple of new writers wanted to do prompts, and it was a piano sitting on the side of the river. And so they sat down, and I edited because I had a lot of editing to do, but a couple of the writers actually did the writing prompt from that picture out of your book. And it was amazing the couple different stories that came out of there. One guy actually did it in kind of a rap theme. I don't know if he shared that with you or if you've seen that. You probably haven't, because I don't.
He mentioned it. He mentioned it, but I haven't heard it.
He did it so well. Yeah, this fellow's brand new to our group, and but I thought it was very neat how that visual that was in your book prompted that. Like, I would never think anything like that. So I could just imagine all the different stories that one visual will prompt. So what got you into writing this book about writing prompts, and what is it actually for? Obviously, the prompt writers do something, but.
So this book, Kara, I have it here. This is what it looks like. Wait.
Yep, there we go.
So this book basically was when I first moved to the Waterloo region. I didn't know anybody. It was a sudden move. We were living in Europe, in Poland, with my husband, and he got transferred. And it was like a day-to-day thing of like, oh, by the way, we're moving. 2 months later, we're there. I don't know anybody. My family's in Toronto. And so the day after we landed, it was March 1st, 2018. And the day after, I think there was an ice storm, which was lovely and really depressing. And then he went to work 2 days later, and I was there with our little dog trying to figure out like what's going on, trying to find a place to live because his company put us up in maybe not the nicest place. And I was just by myself all the time. And I got depressed. I really wasn't happy. I didn't want to live there. I didn't know anybody, like I said. So I sat there and I was trying to write. I was trying to work on projects. And suddenly I realized, you know what? Like, okay, wait, hang on, Caroline. You have a degree in film. Everything you've done your whole life, dance, theater, all of that, it's all visual medium. Why are you staring at a blank page? Because it's not giving you anything. And so I started just researching that a little bit, and I realized that something like 60% of the population actually are visual learners. So that it made me, I don't know, it made me feel a little bit better. And so what I did is I went back to some of the old exercises that we used to do in film class, and it was all based on visuals. And so what I did is I took a photograph. It was a photograph I had taken in Toronto. It was the 501 Queen Street streetcar, like iconic streetcar, man crossing in front of the streetcar. And I just started writing what I saw. I just started writing just nothing. I wasn't trying to do anything. I wasn't trying to be a writer. I wasn't trying to be creative. I was just, there's a man, there's a streetcar, there's some street lights, there's a building with some flowers on it. And pretty soon before I knew it, a story started emerging out of all that. And I'm still not done with that story. It's still sort of in my head somewhere. And I realized that, you know, I'm probably not the only snowflake who occasionally feels this way. And so I started putting this book together. And then there was so many days where there was one time where I was walking with my dog and we were walking around the pond and she was sniffing something, and I found myself just staring at the pond when I actually put my phone down for a second. And this little story started just happening in front of my eyes. Like, I promise you, there was like a little frog with a crown on a lily pad, and there were fairies. I saw them all. And that's how this book came about. And so what I do is I actually teach workshops where we write from photographs. And I use the photographs as either a moment in time, and we talk about what's happening a second after the frame or just before the frame. And one of the exercises that I do actually with that piano, the one that you're referring to, is I usually use that as my first prompt in most of my workshops. And what I do is I have people think of themselves. I mean, everybody's seen a movie, right? We've all been to the movies. We've all watched TV. So what I do is I ask people to walk into that scene, close their eyes for a second, walk into that scene, sit down in the middle of that picture and look up, look down, look to the side, and start using all of their senses to describe what they see. And that's how I usually run that one. And what happens is unbelievable because everybody freaks out at first and no one ever wants to read it. And everybody has like a panic attack. And, and my only rule is you can't apologize for anything and you can't explain anything because I give you 5 minutes. So, nobody's expecting a huge Nobel Prize winning book to come out of this. And yeah, the stuff people come up with is unbelievable. So that's how that whole idea came about. Actually, it's just that it was before COVID, before we were all in isolation.
So you've studied screenwriting. Just wondering, would you recommend like authors study screenwriting? Do you think there's an overlap?
I do. I think it's just a different way of writing. So when you're writing a screenplay, the way you write a screenplay is the way you approach it is that you have to write it in a way that a director can pick up your words and see what you're seeing. Because you don't add all the long shots and extreme close-ups and all the camera things into that script. That comes later. That's not in your initial script. Your script has to read like a story, but it has to read like a visual story. So it is different. I mean, I actually took script doctoring for a while in university, and we would get the screenplays that were going to be made. We would get those, and it was really funny because if it had more than 2 pages of dialogue, you wouldn't even read it. You just cross it out and send it back because that means you're just telling me too much, and I need you to show me everything. I'm all fine. I'm definitely fine with telling. I mean, in a book, it is different in a book, but you had to train your brain in such a way for that is that you just wanted to see it because I need to see what's happening because that's what your viewer is going to have or going to do. So I think it's a really worthwhile thing to do. That's what I try to teach too a little bit when I do those is that idea of like walking into the scene. I need your senses. You can't just describe a piano in the water. Like I need to know how you feel when you get in there. Like it's cold, you have goosebumps. You're trying not to, your muscles are tensing because you're trying not to slip on the ice because the piano's in a river. But that's and that kind of idea and what you're hearing and how your surroundings affect you. And it's all things that I think a good writer does. But it's the specific exercises for screenwriting that I think I think they're definitely beneficial.
I actually did a bit of a screenwriting course myself a couple of years back. I just took it just to see what it was about and everything. And it's amazing how the kind of different perspective of looking at things from that lens, as it were, is different from, fiction writing. But it's amazing how much it kind of like gives you as well, It's very much focused on, like you said, what you see, the visuals, and also very much focused on, the actual action, what's happening in the scene, rather than necessarily being kind of deep in somebody's head, because obviously in a screenwriting, you can't really get that sort of in their head sort of thing.
Yeah. I think I think any writer should always be trying to learn from other styles and other things. And yeah, I think that's definitely beneficial too, because then that part, that being in the person's head and all of that really comes when then between the director and the actor. So that's where they come into the whole writing process of that.
So, a lot of times when I'm selling books, people will say, are you going to turn this into a movie? And I say, I'd love to turn it into a movie, but I don't know where to start. Obviously, we need a screenplay for that. So how would you're saying that you don't take like 2 pages of dialogue and you cross it out. So I've got 600 pages of fantasy characters talking, not for 600 pages, but they talk quite a bit. To me, my wife has even said, we should make these in the screenplays and see if we can get them out there. And it just seems so daunting of a task that I don't even consider. I will not consider it because it just, to me, I'm going, there's no way do I even want to try to take a 600-page novel and turn it into a screenplay.
It's hard. I mean, but then we can talk about Lord of the Rings. We can talk about Martin, the
Game of Thrones, yeah.
Game of Thrones, sorry. I read his books. I like the books. Not as big a fan of the movies.
I like them both. I thought they did a decent job, but they strayed for sure.
Right. Harry Potter, all of that, right? Like if those are the 3 kind of big ones that we've been subjected to recently, right? And so if we look at those, I mean, it's really hard. It's really hard to do that. We used to have to do those exercises in film school of taking little short stories and making them into films. And it is not easy because you have to sit there and decide what's important, what you're going to lose. Some of the secondary stories are probably gone. You have to, as a writer, it's really hard because it's kind of harder than editing, right? Because you have to be able to part with most of it. The thing with a lot of the talking too is that the talking might be that conversation. If you really take a step back from a conversation between 2 characters, you might find that they can actually have that conversation in like a split second because I don't know, they're having a fight about something, but maybe it's a matter of one of them looking at the other one in a certain way or slamming something down on the table or breaking something. And you've kind of had that conversation. So you don't need the words. You can take a movie like Long Day's Journey into Night, which is just just the talking and nothing else happens. But that's going to be that sort of next level. And it's not necessarily going to be as big a commercial hit as you might want it to be, but that's it's super hard. It's a very daunting task, and I have a friend who does that actually. So if you do decide to, I will put you in touch with her. She's a member too of the group, but she it's a huge task because essentially you're taking the essence of someone's story and you're just making it into, I don't want to say a new story, but you're making it into a different story basically, or you're giving it a new light, a new perspective. Right.
So obviously I don't understand at all what really goes on there because so in my mind, we take all the dialogue out or most of it out, and then we give the screenplay to the director. Like, when we sit there and watch Netflix, like they're doing the Wheel of Time series now by Robert Jordan. It's like a 15-book epic story. And I don't know how they're going to, they probably won't keep it going for 15 books. But so all the time for most of these movies that we watch, there's always dialogue in it. So how does the dialogue get back into the story then if we take it out?
It's where it's necessary. So it's where you need it. I mean, there are moments where you do need to have that conversation, and there are moments where you have to have that. And that's where you find it's also pacing. Sometimes there's a movie you're watching, and I've even seen this with action films where I watch a movie and I'm just like, right? And you're kind of falling asleep and that means it's probably too much and it needs a good edit. But then, I mean, I quite enjoy, I watch the Wheel of Time. I quite enjoyed them. I thought the pacing was good. I was interested. I wanted to know what was going to happen next. And that's what that is. It's a marriage of pace, not too much talking, but just enough to keep you, it needs to move the story forward. Is really what it comes down to in the essence. But even for that one, I will say, so my husband's reading the books. So, I agreed, we'll watch the show. I had a good time, but there were moments where I had to look at him and say, hey, so I understand the words because I speak English, but I have no idea what they're talking about. And he had to stop and explain things. So even that wasn't done for somebody who maybe isn't familiar with the books. And I had to look up all the colors of all the robes and all of that too.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's definitely a challenge. And that's why a lot of those epics are made for people who are already fans. And then everybody can just argue about how wrong they got it.
It's kind of interesting because my wife, before she met me, she had never read or seen anything that was science fiction, ever. She'd never watched it, seen it on TV, movies, anything. And so I'm writing science fiction, and she actually helped. She's my first editor on my books. And so, like, when she first started, it was kind of like she was just, what is all this? So yeah, I mean, there's kind of like there's a language that's almost kind of hidden, that's known to kind of like the fans of those genres. But like, if you're not familiar with them, it's like you're really quite lost. You know, there aren't any clues because there's no time to explain everything to people.
But I mean, here's the thing, the way I see it, at the end of the day, a good story is a good story is a good story. And if it's not super boring, like if it doesn't lag, and I mean, this isn't a book or a movie or whatever I'm watching, but if I'm reading something and the pace is good and I'm interested and the story is good, I'll take the time to figure it out. Like that's, you know, I'll take the time to like yell at my husband to stop the TV and explain things to me, or I'll just look them up. Or same thing with a book. I'll do, you know, if it's really good. He's into the whole fantasy world, a lot of science fiction, a lot of fantasy. So I actually have read quite a bit just through him. But you know, I know what an orc is, and I know what, you know, I know that. But yeah, so because of that, like there's stories that I've read that I've really enjoyed as well, because the fundamental story is interesting. It's a good story.
Yeah, it's interesting with the words. I've got a few beta readers that are not fantasy fans at all, but they beta read it, and they actually add a lot to my story because they're not fantasy fans. And they will call me out on words like barbican and portcullis and stuff like that. And then I have to think, you know, my audience is fantasy, so fantasy people. And will they know what a portcullis is? Will they know what a barbican is? And if I have to make everybody think of what those is, then maybe I should you know, reconsider putting them in there. And so it's neat to have beta readers that aren't in your genre, just like David's science fiction. There's so many things that he writes in his stories that I don't have a clue about.
Yeah.
But, and if I think it's important to the story, I'll find out. If I don't think it's important to me in the story, it's just something mentioned in passing as the character's going from one deck to another, I will just gloss over it and let it go. But if it comes back in the story, I go, okay, I better figure this out. So
I agree. And that to me is like, it's also like that reality check. Cause I mean, ideally you probably want to sell your books, right? So you want an audience. So you want people who maybe otherwise wouldn't pick it up to pick it up. And I think that's like an important lesson for everybody though, because it's the same thing. When I've finished my family memoir that I'm currently looking at how I want to publish. And that book is, you know, I hope that anyone can pick that up and read it. I have my target audience. I did the work, and I have my like ideal reader and all of that. But I hope that it transcends that at the end of the day, and that somebody else might be like, oh, hey, this is just a really cool story. Like I definitely want to read it and see more about it. So I think that's the, I mean, I think that's the lesson for all of us. Right?
Yeah, I think it's a fine line too, because as a science fiction author, as a fantasy author, there are certain things that will really resonate with the fantasy fan or the science fiction fan. That they'll go, you know, I get that. I know what he's saying. He's my tribe, and I really enjoy the story because he's included that element in fantasy or science fiction. And the regular layman might not understand that, but the story will resonate more with the fans that he's writing the book for. So it's kind of a fine line that we tread. Do we put it in? Do we take it out? Or
yeah, I mean, absolutely. But like I said, like to me, a good story is a good story. And
oh, for sure, at the end of the day,
right at the end of the day, I'll read it. Like, so, there's some books, like same thing. My husband's like, yeah, you're probably not gonna like this because it's really hardcore. But the minute it sort of, goes a little bit to the other side where it's just a little bit more story, a little bit, then yeah, I mean, I don't see why not. And I think by reading all those different things, for me personally, it just makes my writing stronger, because it just makes me more sensitive to the different styles and different ideas.
So I noticed you've got a very nice website and a very strong and attractive social media presence generally. So I just wondered, it's like, do you have any kind of tips on kind of like getting noticed and how do you kind of like do these things? You know, these
Yeah.
wonderful things.
I mean, I've had it for a while. I've been playing with this for quite a long time, many years. But at the end of the day, I stopped trying. I just started being myself. I curate it, and obviously, I know people who get super personal. I don't do that. I don't like that. If you ask me a question, chances are I'll answer, but I'm not going to get super personal for the whole world to see. But I just right now on Instagram, for example, I got bored and I haven't been able to travel anywhere, and I'm stuck in my house and all of that, and I feel the same way everybody else does. So just before we left Poland, my husband and I took our little dog and we went for a 2-week train ride through Italy. And I thought, okay, well, why don't I document that? I'm just going to take all my viewers through my 2-week trip through Italy. And I'm just, and I just write like a thought on each. It's not an epic. Nobody's reading it really. So it's mostly a photograph. And I've used those photographs already. And I'll just write some new thought underneath it. And then I just talk to the people who are commenting, and I'll try to write something funny or something different. And it's just that idea of talking to people at the end of the day. It's just the social part of the media, right? And it's just doing it. And, I figured out, for me, a good time to post is at 8:00 in the morning. So I wake up and I, putter around, do my thing. And then I sit down and I put a post out, and I just have fun with it. And I try not to take it too seriously, and I try not to overthink it. And slowly, the technical part of it is, if you're going to do Instagram, use your hashtags, because that's how you're going to get found. You think of them as the little, like the little, the way people are going to find you, the way people are going to look you up. But yeah, it's just not taking it too seriously. So just like whatever's on my mind, that's what's going on there that day.
And have you used some of those same photographs as some of your visual prompts as well?
There's some, yes, there's some definitely in there. Those are all, other than 2 photos, which my husband took in Israel. The rest of the photographs are all photos that I've taken that are in the book. And I honestly, I'm also the person who's walking around, and I have no problem whipping out my phone if I see something interesting, corner of a building, a street sign, whatever. I'll snap photos of it. So
that's amazing. That was one of the questions I want to ask you: is are those pictures of your own travels, or are they just pictures you found off Shutterstock or whatever? Those are all yours. So you were there and you saw that piano, and while we were doing that writing prompt, we researched the story behind that piano. And I think Howard got us onto that. And it's a little town. You can inform people where it is. I don't remember that part of the story, but it's a little town that has these things all over the place.
Yeah, it's actually not. You're part right. It's actually Vilnius. It's Vilnius, Lithuania. So capital of the country. But what they did is, I think it started off as a joke originally. It was like an April Fool's kind of joke. And it's the little town, the little enclave of Zupio, Uzupio, I think. And I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing it. I'm sure I'm butchering it. But it's an artist's enclave. And what they've done in there is they're just like, they have their, I think it's up to 42 now, it's like this wall full of like what you're allowed to do, what you're not allowed to do. So it's things like everyone is allowed.
We were reading those, yes.
Yeah, they're phenomenal, right? Everyone's allowed to love a cat, but they have to know that a cat might not love them back.
Yes,
everyone.
That was funny, yeah.
Yeah, and it's just that, and it's like a freedom. It's like their rights and freedoms kind of thing. And it's kind of, I would say, if anyone's a writer or an artist, that is now on your bucket list of places to go, because amount of thought that's put into that place is unbelievable. So there's these pianos everywhere. There's a bunch of them. There's just art everywhere, and this stuff gets left out. Like when it's cold and awful and gray and ugly, that stuff's outside. So I don't know how well it ages and how often they change these things. There's also I think it's about a kilometer now of wall where they started with a tribute wall to Lithuanian writers. And now it's expanded to writers that people love. And people will come and they'll create these plaques. And this wall is unbelievable. You literally walk down this wall going, oh, I know that person. I know that person. I read that book. And it's quite amazing. Their writers are actually really great too. So not a lot has been translated into English. But I have a few books that have been, and it's a very it's interesting writing that's coming out from a country that was so oppressed for so long, and like by communism. Like I think it didn't stop till like the late 50s. Like it's quite recent. And so there's definitely this sort of heavy, dark energy in a lot of it. And so it's really interesting to see the art and the writing that's coming out from that. But definitely on everybody's bucket list right now, officially. And they don't pay me to say that.
So you've obviously got a lot of experience in a lot of different areas in writing. So I was just wondering, can we expect to maybe see a novel by Caroline Topperman someday?
Well, if an agent wants to pick it up, then yes. So right now I actually finished a family memoir. It is done. It is, and I thought, because I've self-published and I went with a small press for the Tell Me What You See book, I thought, okay, I'm going to try, because I believe in maybe torturing myself, and I believe in trying, and I'm not the kind of person that likes to give up and just it's just who I am. I'm going to try. So so right now it's being queried to agents. It's really, really good. It's my family story from when my grandparents fled. My maternal grandparents fled Poland as communist Jews, and they fled to Uzbekistan. So they actually survived the war partially in Tashkent, Uzbekistan, and then Russia, and then or Soviet Union. And then my paternal grandparents left just before the war with my dad, actually, because he was born just before the war. And they went to Afghanistan. And my grandfather there was tasked with building the highway from Kabul to Jalalabad. And then everybody came back to Poland in 1944. My parents met in the 50s, early 60s. My mom went to study painting in Paris. My dad he was in Poland, and he was just getting a contract to build roads in Iraq as a geotechnical engineer. And then 68 hit, and my mom's father, he was a ministry official, and he was one of the first 3 in Poland to get officially fired from the Communist Party, because under the pretext that my uncle, that his son was a troublemaker, but it's because they were Jewish. And so then it was like the second wave that left, and my parents became political refugees. And so I've tied that in with my story of when I decided to sell everything and move to Poland for 4.5 years.
Nice.
So yes, you can. Some way, somehow, it will come out.
Wow, that's quite the story.
Yeah.
So we're starting to get near the end of the show there, and I wanted to ask you this. I also see that you're the managing editor for Non-Binary Review. And what exactly does a managing editor do as opposed to an editor? Is it like a supervisor, or how's that work?
Yeah, so I work with the editor-in-chief. And I put together the order for how the magazines come out, like I'll order all the pieces. I created systems for them for all of the people who read for the magazine and for all the contributors and how all of that goes. And I deal with any kind of problems that might arise with staff or all of that. And so what I've done, I've also done a lot of their social media and just general media, how we've been presenting ourselves and all of that. And I oversaw all of that. So it's all the day-to-day stuff really is what it does.
So do you edit yourself as far as manuscripts and stuff like that?
Yeah, I do more developmental editing. And now I'm also doing book coaching. So I have a couple of clients that I'm working with and I'm coaching them through their books.
And if people are looking for your services, how would they get a hold of you?
It's all on my website on the carolinetopperman.com. And there's a whole section. So I actually do coaching with, I can walk people through their social media and their websites and just the design of that. And then also if they are looking for more developmental editing or for book coaching, it's all there. And you just fill out a form, answer some questions for me, and I will get in touch.
So is that genre specific or is that just writing in general?
For me, it is because I know the nonfiction world really well. And I can, like a coaching student or a coaching client, I can take them right through coaching them how to put their book together to doing the actual book proposal, because that's a big project in its own. Like my book proposal for mine is like 50 pages. And then taking it, and if they want to query agents, if they want to go that route, I can do that too. I have experience with that and I know that world pretty well. Or through self-publishing, because I've done that as well. So
awesome.
Yeah.
Before we wrap it up, Dave, is there something that you want to ask her before we leave?
Just going back to the screenwriting and that aspect of it. Okay, so tell us, what are your favorite movies?
Okay, my favorite movie that has sits way deep in my heart is this Canadian film. It is really weird, and it's called Leolo. It's this, you know what, I went to all the Toronto art house films and all of those. So those are the ones I'm always going to be kind of drawn to in my heart. But that would be my favorite movie of all time.
Cool.
I highly recommend it. It's really cool.
That's awesome.
It's a little bit surrealism and all of that. That was always my thing.
So you mentioned people get a hold of you through your website, and Dave's put the website on I know it says my name, but Dave typed it in for you. And as far as your books go, where can we find them? I imagine they're wide, being what they are. Are they available on Amazon, and where else can people find them?
Yeah, Amazon. The Tell Me What You See book is also available locally in Waterloo at Wordsworth. And I'm trying to get them into some stores in Toronto, but Amazon, or that's probably your best bet. If people want a signed copy, I can send them one.
Yes, awesome.
Then they just have to email me. And also, I mean, honestly, if you get in touch with me over Instagram or something, I do actually answer.
That's always nice.
Yeah.
So, and what's next in the Caroline Topperman world? I know you said you're looking for an agent for your memoir, but what else is coming down the pipes? So
I'm actually also working. I have this idea. I'm kind of noodling around with my next book that I want to do, and I want to call it something like Conversations Over Coffee and Wine, and I want it to be more essay based. I also started a magazine on Medium called Migrations Review. And I'm just putting essays on there that I don't know where else they would fit, and they don't really fit on my blog. So on my website, there's a link to it. And I'm also looking right now just to publish parts of my book. Some of the chapters work as essays. So I'm trying to get somebody interested in trying to get those published.
Oh, that's awesome. I look forward to speaking to you through the KW's Writers Alliance, and we'll catch up again. Absolutely. But until then, thank you for being on our show tonight. And if you ever have a book launch or something and you want to come back on and talk about it, by all means, let us know, and we'll get you back in here.
I hope so.
Let us know when you land that agent. That would be awesome.
Thanks. Yeah, this was a lot of fun. Thank you for having me.
Oh, you're most welcome. And how about Dave? What's new in the Dave Kelly universe?
The big news this week is that Clench and Dawn, the editing, well, my editing at least, is finished, and it's gone off to my external editor. And she's currently dissecting it piece by piece.
Throwing it in the fire, so to speak.
Covering it in red ink, and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, that's good. It's taken quite a long time to do this one. I've been very distracted with garages and COVID and all of these things, but yeah, it is at least my initial kind of like editing is finished, so that's with my editor. So I should have that back in a few weeks, and then it will be down to me to just take anything into heart that she feeds back to me, and then it will be going live, and I believe it will be published in, I'm gonna say, April.
So you're obviously you're doing something else between now and April. What are you working on?
I'm working on book 3. Funnily enough, yeah. So I'm probably about 20% into book 3.
Nice.
And I'm also working on the second Hyperion Jones novel. The Tentacles Will Return. And so I'm working on that at the same time. I kind of like alternate depending on what I feel like. And I'm also planning out a completely new series for after both of those.
Awesome.
Something completely different.
Sounds great. So as far as I'm concerned, sorry, what's that, Dave?
I just said, how about you, Richard?
Oh yeah, as far as I'm concerned, I'm still working on Windwalker Book 3 and the High Cliff Guardian series. I'm about 80,000 words into it now, so it's coming slower than I hope, but we'll get it out. And I'm revamping the covers on the Rika's Flight series, so we want to get them more consistent with everything else. So we've got cover 2 now done, and I won't reveal any of the covers unless you're on my live reads on Thursday. You won't see them. But every time I do a live read, I put the cover on, and you can see them there. But so they will probably go live, hopefully, maybe April, and then I'll switch everything over on Amazon and have all my new covers out there. So anyway, that's all that's new with me. So next week, Looking for Legends, I'm happy to announce a returning guest to our show, marketing and author assistant Kate Tilton. We learned a lot from Kate last time she was here. And she's got a lot of great tips on how to up our author business. So Kate has been helping authors since 2010. She's the founder of Kate Tilton's Author Services, LLC, and helps authors of all stripes to navigate the publishing world, which is a very daunting thing, and connect with the readers. Kate loves cats, tea, and all things geeky things. So that should be right up your alley there, Dave. So for Christy Stratos, who sends her regrets, and David M. Kelly and myself, Richard A. Stevens, we hope everyone has a safe and healthy week ahead. And until we meet again, take good care.
Thanks. Good night.
Thank you.